Hello and welcome to the Bible Difficulties and Answers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Smith. Today, we're taking a closer look at Genesis 8:22. At first glance, this verse might seem straightforward, but there's a lot more to unpack here. Why is it important? Famines still occur, which might seem to contradict this verse. Or perhaps was the concept of seasons and temperature changes something humanity had never experienced before the flood? Was God informing Noah about what was to come? Could this seemingly simple verse actually be the foundation for today's prosperity gospel? Or, in a time when we're inundated with fear-mongering from various activists, is this verse a source of comfort, reminding us that God was, is, and will always be in control? Join us as we explore these questions and more, seeking to understand the profound implications of Genesis 8:22 for our lives today. As usual, I'll present a number of different opinions from my research and conclude with my own thoughts. Show notes will include links to all we discuss. Are you ready to dive in? All right, let's learn together. Genesis 8:22 from the New Living Translation. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. Okay, now the problem, as defined by the Big Book of Bible Difficulties, is this. God promised Noah, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest shall not cease. However, there are many famines recorded, even in Bible times, when there has been no harvest. We see that in Genesis 26:1 and 41, verse 54. Now, the solution as defined by the Big Book of Bible Difficulties is this. Cease, which is in Hebrew Shabbath, means to come to an end, to be eliminated, to desist completely. This passage only promises that the seasons will not cease, not the crops. It refers to seed time and harvest time, not necessarily to the actual planting and harvesting of a crop. And the seasons have never stopped completely since this promise was made to Noah. Further, this general promise was not intended as a guarantee that there would be no temporary interruptions. It was only a statement about the permanent cycles of the year until the end of time. Okay, I agree with the Big Book of Bible Difficulties here regarding famines, but I think there's a bit more here with this verse to unpack. Let's begin our research all the way back to the Second London Baptist Confession in 1689, which gives us the Baptist Confession of Faith. This confession actually discusses what is referenced in Genesis 8:22, as it says, and I quote, "Although in relation to the foreknowledge and decree of God, the first cause, all things come to pass immutably and infallibly, so that there is not anything befalls any by chance or without his providence, yet by the same providence he ordereth them to fall out according to the nature of second causes, either necessarily, freely, or contingently." Close quote. Okay, did you understand that? No problem if you didn't. 17th century English is really hard to understand. What this confession of faith means in today's vernacular is this. This passage means that according to the foreknowledge and decree of God, who is the ultimate cause, everything happens in a fixed and certain way, without chance or randomness, and under God's providence. However, within this providence, events occur in a way that aligns with the nature of secondary causes. These secondary causes can be one of three things. Number one, necessary. Events that must happen due to natural laws or predetermined conditions. Number two, free. Events that result from the free will and choices of individuals. And three, contingent. Events that happens based on conditional circumstances and can be unpredictable. Right. In summary, everything happens according to God's plan, but within that plan, events unfold through natural laws, free will, and chance. It's the natural law that is described in Genesis 8:22, planting, harvesting, temperature change, seasons, night and day. So the Baptists got this right in their confessional. But why was it necessary to spell these things out, like crop seasons, temperature changes, etc.? For this, the Reverend Paul Sejong from the New Life Mission Sermon Series offers a unique perspective from his sermon titled, "There Are 8 Seasons in Our Lives of Faith." Reverend Zhang says, and I quote, "Why did God say this? From a scientific perspective, this passage also makes sense. Some scientists say that the weather was very stable before Noah's flood because the earth was protected by a belt of water above the firmament. It seems like the seasons were changed after Noah's flood because the waters above the firmament were all poured down onto the surface of the earth. Climate changes are likely to have occurred on planet Earth to alter its seasons. So God said this to Noah beforehand so that he would not be surprised by what was to unfold, but be ready for it, close quote. Okay, now that's interesting. Due to the canopy of water above the earth, which we did discuss in some earlier podcasts, there may have been no seasonal changes before this time. As you recall from our earlier discussions, this canopy may have also contributed to humans living substantially longer lives. According to Reverend Zhang, this verse was needed to help Noah understand the climate and seasonal changes he was about to experience for the very first time. Now, others view Genesis 8:22 as a clear indication of God unveiling something foundational for what we know today as the prosperity gospel. Before we dive into this, it's helpful to first define the prosperity gospel, and that is, it's a belief that faith can bring wealth, health, and happiness to believers. It's also known as the health and wealth gospel or the gospel of success. All right, simply put, it is a false gospel. One only need to look at the fate of each of the disciples of Christ. Did any achieve great wealth? No. All right, so back to our research. How does Genesis 8:22 imply a prosperity gospel? From an April 19, 2013 article by Lisa Spencer titled Seed Time in Horror, she writes, and I quote, Genesis 8:22 has served as a foundational verse for prosperity teaching with the philosophy of seed time and harvest. The idea is that our Christian life is about sowing seed to reap a harvest. So financial giving then becomes the indicator of our faith to make this happen. An entire theology and numerous ministries have been built on this one verse. If you don't believe me, do a Google search. Now, the promoters of Seed Time Harvest Ministries will say that it's biblical, but it's an egregious distortion of the biblical text and the Christian faith, close quote. All right, so in other words, if you give a lot, you get a lot here on earth. This is a selfish desire taught nowhere in the scriptures. To me, prosperity gospel advocates are attempting to use backwards reasoning, a method of arguing that starts from the end and works backwards. They want a goal of a prosperity gospel, and they use this verse now to justify their goal. So the research we've reviewed so far, could the explanation be just as simple as what was actually said in Genesis 8:22? The Bible Ref website offers this explanation. After the previous verse revealed God's commitment to never again curse the earth, as he had through the flood, or to wipe out humanity and animal kind in that way, this verse completes God's promise. From this point, throughout the planet's history, the patterns of nature will remain as God has created them. The cycles will continue. Day will follow night. One season will follow another. The world will continue to function predictably according to God's design. This is the grace of God upon all his creation. It's important to notice that this promise begins with, while the earth remains. God doesn't guarantee that the planet in its current form will exist eternally. In fact, at some point in the future, God will remake the heavens and the earth. We see that in Revelation 21:1. But while it does, those who live on earth will enjoy the goodness of the repetition of the days and seasons by God's great mercy and on a sinful humanity, close quote. This line of research continues with the Knowing Jesus website in an article titled, What Does Genesis 8:22 Mean?, where it says, He promised that while the earth remains, seed time and harvest would never fail. Cold and heat will continue their necessary function. Summer would follow winter, and winter in turn would blossom into summer. He even promised that day and night themselves would not cease. And God's word cannot be broken, for God has even placed his word above his holy name. Close quote. And we review more here from the BibleSays.com website in an article titled Genesis 8:18 through 22 Meaning, where it says, and I quote, The promise that day, night, harvesting, and the seasons will continue while the earth remains has vast cosmological ramifications. As the ark was a place of safety and deliverance in the middle of a wicked world, the earth now becomes a sort of ark for humanity. God promises the seasons will continue. The seasons are caused by the very delicate balance of the earth's tilt and the very narrow window within which the earth revolves around the sun. One tiny shift would completely upset the seasons or make the earth uninhabitable. Life on earth could not be more fragile in this respect, but we need not worry because God is sustaining the seasons. This is something we should have the gratitude of Noah for, but we tend to take it for granted. God also promises that day and night shall not cease. This means that God will see that the earth's rotation remains stable. Once again, this is an amazing promise that brings stability to the earth, enabling it to be an ark that preserves humanity for this season of human history. As with the earth's rotation around the sun and its tilt, if the earth's spin were to alter materially, it likely would be calamitous for the human race. But God here promises that He will sustain the earth's delicate balance until it's time for a new earth to be constructed, close quote. All right, back to me. To summarize, I think Genesis 8:22 is about as clear can be on what God was communicating to Noah. Let's review. Whether there were first-time ever seasonal or temperature changes due to the canopy of water being released is an interesting thought. I don't find a lot of corroborating research on this, but I find that line of thought intriguing. However, I don't find Genesis 8:22 compelling for teaching a prosperity gospel, as some claim. To me, it's very simple when you read the start of Genesis 8:22, which is as long as the earth remains. Now, as you recall from last week's podcast, when we looked at 2 Peter 3:10, we see a total destruction scenario, a cosmic end that involves the universe itself. That's to come in the future. But here we see God's promise to Noah, giving us hope and comfort, that there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, as long as the earth remains. Then God will usher in the new heavens and new earth. No doomsday scenario created or attempted to execute is ever even remotely possible to destroy the earth or even alter the seasons by humans. Sorry, climate change alarmists. We will continue our cycle of seasons until God determines the end of our present universe. It never ceases to amaze me, the hubris of mankind, to think we as a species are capable of doing only what God can actually do, affecting or destroying our earth. Tale as old as time, and it raises lots of money for people who traffic in this type of fear-mongering. That aside, until the end, we will have planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night. That's a promise God makes, and one we can truly take comfort in while reading this verse. In our next episode, we'll explore Genesis 9:3. Did God ordain the eating of meat or only plants? Join us as we delve into this intriguing question. You may reach us at our website, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers.podbean.com, or you may reach out to me directly at our email address, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers@gmail.com, with any questions, comments, concerns, fits of righteous indignation, or just to say hi. Also, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell a friend or two as well, and also write a review and give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, or any of your venues of choice. It really does help get the word out about the most amazing book ever written. Again, I'm Lance Smith. Until next time, I wish you good luck, good health, and God bless. So long, everybody.